I now see different religions as kind of like different languages.
Yeah.
So I can be fluent in Jesus and I can be fluent in New Age woo-woo. And it kind of, to me, kind of doesn't matter. It really is about connecting with each other and using words, images, vocabulary, rituals, cultural touchstones that make sense in that context. So I don't think that there's one true language on the face of the earth. I just think that there's certain languages, stories, traditions, myths, rituals that connect a people to each other and to their past and to their higher selves. So I'm multilingual.
Welcome to Faith and What Resonates, a show that explores the intersection of faith, spirituality, music, and art, and the ways that we make meaning. I'm Gail Gallagher, professional musician and lifelong seeker. I'm a member of the Unitarian Universalist Church, and one of our principles is that everyone has their own search for truth and meaning. On this show, I talk to musicians, artists, clergy, and other awesome people about the ways that they find meaning as we explore the magic of the things that resonate. My guest today is Suzanne Yada. She is a singer-songwriter and teacher based in California. In this conversation, we talk about Suzanne's connection to the work of Rumi and how that inspired her stage name Little Spiral, her faith journey that has led her to see religions as different languages, her creative work, and her Concerts for Introverts series. And she also performs her song Redefining Perfect, which is out now wherever you stream your music. Anyway, I'm so excited for you to meet her, so let's jump into the conversation. All right, I am here on the Zoom with Suzanne Yada. Hi.
Hello, Gail. How you doing?
So good. I love that. So you this is not a visual medium, y'all, but she has a background that is space. And
I'm calling from outer space.
Perpetually in space. So yeah, Suzanne, can you introduce yourself to the audience a little bit about who you are and what you do in the world?
Sure. Many things. I am many things. So I'm Suzanne Yada. My main expression in this world is as a singer-songwriter under the name of Little Spiral. Part of the reason I have a big backdrop of a very big spiral, a spiral galaxy, is because I am a little microcosmic spiral as a part of this big spiral galaxy we're all in. So if you ever wonder why, if you see any of my lives or TikToks or anything like that, I usually have the space background. And also just remember that there's things bigger than me. And then I also do some side stuff too in the digital marketing realm for clients, particularly with advertising and help people navigate that world. But to be honest, it is much more fulfilling to play the role of a songwriter, a poet, piano player, top liner sometimes, just more in the music realm.
So I love how you describe your alter ego as Little Spiral. And I don't know if I'd process the connection to the galaxy imagery.
Yeah. There's a whole story just around. Should I cuss or no?
You can cuss. I'll just tell people.
I can cuss. Okay.
Yeah, you can
Excellent. Cuss. Great. There's many stories behind the spiral, but the shortest one that I can tell is like I'm a little spiral in a big spiral galaxy. That's like the one sentence thing. If they really want to know, it's actually more of a reference to Rumi than anything, because it reminds me of the whirling dervish dance. And Rumi kind of came into my life in a pretty big way. I want to say like 2014, beginning of 2014, when I knew I'd actually been in the journalism industry before this for a number of years, for almost like 14, 15 years. And I knew that there was more to what I had to offer. I was actually not the journalist, the journalist role itself. I was more supplementary. I hit all the buttons that made the internet go, kind of thing, for journalism organizations. And I had been kind of realizing that music, that had been something that was a big part of my teenage years, had kind of dissipated from my life. Not only performing it, but even just listening to it. It just kind of went away, even though it was so central to me in my formative years. And I thought, oh, well, that's just me growing up and getting a job and, had other priorities, which is fair. But it was around 2013, 2014 where I started to realize I had something that I needed to say outside of a journalistic context. So things that weren't necessarily facts, but still true to its core. And so I realized that I was pretty stuck. And one thing that I do every New Year, it's about a 4-day retreat. I take a 4-day silent retreat. And I used to do it with a group, and now I kind of do it either on my own or with my own kind of group. So the New Year's between 2013, 2014, I was really stuck, and I went to this retreat and just to try and clear my head around things, just to kind of go, like, I just felt so stagnant. Like, it wasn't terrible. Nothing was awful, but that was like almost as bad, because I think if it was really terrible, I'd know that I needed to leave. So we were going through a few like guided meditations, and we had ample time for our own like silences. But one of the guided meditations that I do every year now, because it was so impactful for me, was to think of a guide for your upcoming year. And it could be anybody, living or dead. It could be fictional, real. It could be historical, present, future. Who knows? Like, the exercise asks you to focus on the qualities that you want to embrace in the new year. And then you go more deep into a meditation, and you're open to whatever guide embodies those qualities. And I knew that I really wanted creativity. And I also knew that I wanted it centered around love. And the other thing that was kind of coming to me, I don't exactly know why, but I knew it needed to be embodied in a male. Because I think love is not associated as a male trait anymore, or like it tends to be like, oh, you show love, you show emotions, you're a sissy, And I think I really needed to heal some of that prejudice, and wanted to lift something up that actually represented love, creativity, and also, was in a male form. So it actually took, oh gosh, probably like a good half hour, an hour. And if you've ever spent a half hour, an hour in just silence, that kind of seems like 3 days.
Yeah.
As soon as my brain kind of cleared its way, and as soon as Rumi showed up, and in a really big, powerful way, like that instance, I kind of like got up from my seat, which was odd because everybody else was sitting, but and I had just like lightning just struck, and I knew. And I hadn't known much about Rumi. It just like maybe in high school honors English class, we read some poems from him, and I just remembered him vaguely. But when it came back and I knew that this was somebody to really dive deep in basically a relationship with this person, understanding, 850 years ago, 900 years ago, he was saying some things with this poetry and with his messaging that really, really spoke to now. I just kind of, it just felt like lightning. And when I went back, I was living in Berkeley at the time, and when I returned to the real world after retreats, it feels like you've exited into space. And when I landed back in Berkeley, I knew that I wanted to embrace something that reminded me of that connection. I wanted to kind of trick my brain into, anytime I see this one thing, I'll be reminded. And I walked into a random Tibetan gift shop. Berkeley is scattered with lots of those kinds of things. And I knew I was going to find something, and there it was. It was actually a ring that had this operculum shell. I'm wearing an operculum shell necklace right now. It's a different one, but I'd since lost that ring. But that reminded me of the whirling dervish, and that became the symbol of the spiral that I then saw everywhere. Like, you could see spirals everywhere if you look for them, and I do, and it's really annoying, actually. Everywhere. And I love it. I love it because they are everywhere, and I love it because people take pictures of them and like send it to me on Instagram or tag me or whatever it is. And I love that because, again, it's just that reminder, that touch point of like, everything is about love, everything is about creation, and just expressing that. And that's what Little Spiral is really all about. So that was the very long answer. The short answer is like, galaxies, sure.
Yeah, no, like, and this is the place for the long answers. Absolutely. Yes. That is what we're here to do today. And I appreciate that. So within that Rumi element, and forgive me if I missed it, but was there like a particular line, or it was just like was it just like a download of like, Rumi is my jam?
Yeah, it was a download of like, this is the guy I need to pay attention to, because he has a lot of wisdom and a lot of things that parallel what I'm experiencing. I'll also say that, when I'm in that space and I don't have the opportunity to go and research, that's actually better for me because I'm an over researcher and overthinker. But as I trust that there's a reason my subconscious or my higher conscious, whatever you want to call it, put that image of that person, and it was less about what he was saying and more like, again, it's like a relationship. Somebody comes in and you don't really know them, you get to find out and discover more, and either it's a more joyous discovery or it's not. Mm-hmm. And through my relationship with Rumi and getting to know him and getting to know how I've come to know him, I'll also say that us in America, us in the West, we've come to know Rumi through a guy named Coleman Barks, who is one of the more popular translators of his work. It's important to have an asterisk on that because he doesn't speak Persian at all. Mm-hmm. He is a poet, and he teaches poetry at a collegiate level, this guy. But in his translations, he whitewashes a lot of Rumi's original tradition rooted in Muslim and Sufi traditions. So there's not the word Allah is not in any of Coleman Barks' translation, which I think Rumi would be rolling around in his grave because it feels so separate from the Muslim tradition that he was really embedded in. So with an asterisk, acknowledging that the reason Coleman Barks' poetry reaches me as a Westerner, as a modern Westerner, is because of that translation and because of that removal and that whitewashing. So once I started to understand that, and in my, striving to not, to resist white supremacy culture when I can, when I see it, it's actually opened up a lot more as well in understanding more of the historical Rumi, more of like what gets translated and what doesn't, and kind of healing a little bit of my resistance to organized religion in general. Kind of opening that up and yeah, I could talk forever about that kind of stuff.
Oh yeah. Well, and I wanted to this my next question was sort of to get the general how it started, how it's going of your faith journey, but which we're getting a very good picture of sort of where you like lean now and sort of how that's like informed your artistic choices. But I am curious about your relationship with organized religion.
Oh boy. All right. Is this a 3-hour podcast or okay.
Cliff notes,
short story. I grew up Mormon. I'm the fourth out of 6 kids. And we grew up in a pretty conservative part of California, central part, near Fresno. And I left when I was 20. It took a couple of years of some real hard questions for myself. It took, reading things that weren't Mormon approved. Oh my God. And it also took the advent of the internet. That was about 2000. So I'm aging myself, but that's, the internet was, the World Wide Web particularly was a brand new baby, and let me look things up that I had questions about, and found that, the questions aren't exactly answered. And wait a minute, what is this? And in this forum, they're talking about this, and I want to argue with them, but I have nothing to say because they're right. That kind of thing. So one interesting side note of this story is that all 8 of us in the immediate family are now also all out. Like one by one, the kids kind of said, I'm out. And then my parents also left, and they're more of a non-denominational Christian. But that's a side note. There's a couple of things that helped me kind of step out of that. One is there's a Unitarian Universalist church in my town called Visalia. Small congregation, maybe 20 people. It was a fellowship. And the president of that was also former Mormon. Oh, cool. So there was like a connection there, and a little, small little dot of what I felt was sanity in the midst of not sanity. And that helped me transition out a bit, seeing that there were other ways to do faith. But I also felt that the UU, what I really appreciated is that they loved questions. Mormons don't like questions, they like answers. Even if the answers don't make any sense, there's answers though. That's there's an answer. It's right there.
Yeah.
Doesn't have to make sense. It's just an answer. But I appreciated that this faith community liked questions, and it didn't matter. And this is the first time I encountered something that people called a church, but had a whole bunch of atheists in it, yes. which is awesome. But I also found that I was starting to. It took maybe a couple of years, and I still kind of go back and forth about things. But I still felt called and drawn to a higher power of some sort. Like there's things beyond the material world that science can't describe yet. I hope someday it will. Maybe someday it will. But I just found that the atheist community, who are like amazing people, brilliant minds, still lacked the kind of openness to something beyond, and I was seeking that a little bit. So from there I found another community. At the time it's called Religious Science, and now it's a Centers for Spiritual Living. There's kind of the hippy dippy folks, who definitely had a lot more of that heart and that kind of connection to something bigger that I had been looking for, but also lacked a couple of the groundedness things that I really liked in UU. So for a while, I was kind of going to both, getting my needs in different communities, and then for a while I wasn't going to either, and then I started like, but even with that, going back to what I was talking about before about, organized religion and kind of my allergic reaction to all of it. I now see different religions as kind of like different languages.
Yeah.
So I can be fluent in Jesus, and I can be fluent in New Age woo-woo. And it kind of, to me, kind of doesn't matter. It really is about connecting with each other and using words, images, vocabulary, rituals, cultural touchstones that make sense in that context. So I don't think that there's one true language on the face of the earth. I just think that there's certain languages, stories, traditions, myths, rituals that connect a people to each other and to their past and to their higher selves. So I'm multilingual in I speak Jesus. I love me some Jesus. I speak New Age woo woo. I speak atheism too. I speak atheism, agnosticism, all of the pantheism, secularism, humanism, like all the subtle differences in the non-theist movement. And I speak a little bit of Buddhism, a little bit of Sufism, a lot of like all of these traditions also have like mystical elements. So I'm really drawn to the mystics. I'm really drawn to the people who are less literal about everything and more what's the word?
Poetic.
They're more a lot more poetic. Like Rumi.
There we did it.
Yes.
Yeah. Tied. That's beautiful. And like I've definitely had that observation of thinking of different faiths as different languages. And the way you articulated that was a really beautiful way to say that. And yeah, there are definitely different languages within the non-theistic, and like learning to speak all those different things. And also I will say the depending on the UU congregation and depending on how atheist the flavoring is, it can be like, okay, it can be hard if you are more theistic to like find that, that right balance. And it is a thing where like every congregation is a little bit different flavored and has different needs.
Yeah. And particularly in the conservative community I grew up in Visalia, there was not a whole lot of place for atheists, period. And so they found their place at the UU congregation. And so that it definitely served a need in forming community, forming even like, I'd call them rituals. You meet every Sunday as a ritual. And it served its purpose that really was needed. I still attended both, and I got a lot out of still attending both while still feeling like just the it wasn't, the heart wasn't there, but the soul wasn't there. It was kind of intellectualized out, which is fine. I needed that too. I just needed a supplement, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, absolutely. And yeah, no, I all this all tracks with my experience as well. So I'm just like, oh, this is great. Yeah, and that's a thing to talk like with this is a whole other side quest, but I feel like with this podcast, part of why I enjoy exploring this is like talking to other people, especially like, well, within my age group and also older and younger, but like about their journeys. And because like with Unitarian churches, it does skew a lot older, and and there's a lot of us who have these unique journeys, but like we're not necessarily gonna go to church, you know?
Yeah, and I found that, you know, I really loved the UUCB, the Church of Berkeley that I went into. It was just this lovely church, lovely people. It was on the hills. You could see the city, the San Francisco. When I say the city, I mean San Francisco. You see the Golden Gate Bridge. It's just like this beautiful property. And I was a proud member for a while. Then I just stopped feeling connected to the ritual of church. That definitely it's in the Protestant language. Again, it's needed, especially for people who are trying to heal their connection with church. That template can be really helpful for people. It just no longer was really helpful for me. Of going to church, singing the hymn, standing up, reciting, doing the announcements, doing the sermon, doing the thing. It just felt not. It just didn't feel like it served me, and because the center of the universe is me, of course. But I just no longer felt connected to that part of the Protestant language. And I now use Sundays more as music days. In some ways, that's like my church, my expression, my connection to whatever higher power. I still struggle with the name.
Hey there, we'll be back to my conversation with Suzanne Yada in a minute, but I wanted to quickly tell you about what's happening with the New Faith New Media Network. As you know, the show is produced by New Faith New Media and Interfaith Podcast Network. We just launched our crowdfunding campaign to help us pay for our amazing new website. This website will include our very own discussion forum where folks from different faith backgrounds can build community, discuss NFNM shows, and connect on other topics as well. You can find out more about this campaign and how you can support by heading to bit.ly/NFNMindie. That's bit.ly/NFNMINDIE. Also, that link will be in the show notes. Anyway, back to my conversation with Suzanne. You set up for a very good transition into your music.
Yes.
And I feel like there's a couple different places we can go because but when you say Sunday ritual, my mind goes to concerts for introverts.
Yes.
So
yes.
Yeah. Because you have your own like your own like monthly ritual thing happening with that. So tell people a little bit about what that is and sort of how that's grown.
Yeah. Actually, I'm glad you brought that up because I don't. The choice doing my concerts for introverts on a Sunday afternoon was very deliberate. It was like, well, let's for those of us who kind of don't do the church thing, here's one way of creating community at least, and connecting to something higher. I'm not starting a cult, y'all, but if they want to start a cult for me, fine, but no. So Concerts for Introverts is a monthly thing. It's the first Sunday of the month. I do a Zoom concert, and it's designed specifically. Yeah, it was launched in the middle of the pandemic, but it was because I realized that I was starting to get tired of the concerts that went till 2 a.m. and some like dingy dive bar, and everybody was drunk, and I was kind of over it. And look, I'm not going to yuck people's yums. If that's your jam, then that's your jam. It just wasn't mine anymore. And I realized that I still loved music. I still loved live music. I still loved that experience. But how about we do Sunday afternoon concerts instead of like Friday 2 a.m. concerts? And how about we do it from our own homes where we could like snuggle up in the covers and not talk to anybody like a true introvert? And how about we do it internationally? Like there's a couple of regulars who call in from the UK, Canada, States, like all over on these Sunday afternoons. And just I also encourage people to bring their favorite introvert activity to do, so you can actually multitask the shit out of it. I don't care. That's what I'm here for. I also notice with my ADHD. Let me take that back. I noticed that with my brain that has, how do I word it? I'm not diagnosed ADHD. I recognize my brain has very similar symptoms.
Yeah.
Okay.
I refer to mine as my unnamed squirrels. Go on.
Yes, unnamed squirrels. I love it. So all the unnamed squirrels in my head. I recognize that I had trouble just staying and like observing a show. And so I encourage anybody who comes to Concerts for Introverts to bring their favorite introvert activity, whether it's like hanging out with the cat or doing a puzzle or gardening or like any of that. Like you can do that at the same time as these shows. And again, just providing a different experience for what a live concert would be. And, at first the idea came to me because of the pandemic, but now I'm like, well, I'm keeping this around after the pandemic kind of settles down because there is such a need. I have also found that there's a little side, there's like a side effect that some of my friends or some people that I know who have kids can now attend concerts because and the kids come to the shows too sometimes. Sometimes I cuss a little too much, but but it just there's a certain age bracket where we're kind of like over the late night thing. But then there's also a couple of people who come to all my shows who do all of the concerts and who are just concert fiends. Well, a Sunday afternoon still is available. It still is like a thing that people can just chill out and relax, even if they still want to go to the other shows. Even if they're still extroverts, like it's still a place to kind of recharge. And so people have come to my Concert for Introvert shows. They've done like one built a bike, someone sewed a dress. Other people were just like, petting a cat. We always introduce the furry friends to each other after the show. And we just have a chill Sunday afternoon once every month on Zoom. And it's been awesome. So there's actually, I'm going to be, we're taping this on October 30th. I'm soon going to be recording a live album and releasing it to Spotify from one of my Concerts for Introverts. That also is an interesting thing because a live album, historically, the difference between a studio album and a live album is like there's applause on the live album. Concerts for Introverts never really had applause. So I'm creating this album that is encapsulating the heart and soul of what Concerts for Introverts experience is. And it is a live album, but it's not like Frampton Comes Alive, y'all. Like it really is not. So this is really a really exciting project that I'm going to be working on in the next couple weeks.
I love that. And whatever state things are in when this comes out, I will link things appropriately in the notes and whatnot.
Fabulous.
Yes.
Concertsforintroverts.com will usually get you where you need to go.
Sweet. But yeah, oh man. Yeah, I love hearing the community that you built around that. And that has been one of my favorite things with the pandemic time, is being able to do these like creative concerts and like have people tune in, and being able to attend my friends' burlesque shows from my couch.
Yes.
It's my favorite thing.
That needs to just keep going beyond the pandemic. Because
Yeah.
I've had fans who were like pretty hardcore fans who've listened to everything that I've put out on my Patreon. I release a song every month for the past 3.5 years. I put out all these songs, and I have fans around the world, but they've not been able to come to any of my shows, and now they can. And now they're not. It's not a lesser than experience because they're in another continent. It's the same experience that other people are having when they're even closer.
It's so cool. So I wanted to segue to talking about February Album Writing Month, which is how we initially connected. Yeah. So February Album Writing Month is, for those who don't know, it's this annual challenge in February where you write 14 songs in 28 days. And it's this beautiful, it's basically an online music retreat. Although you always get to go hang out in a cool house with a bunch of songwriters for the first week of it, right?
Oh, yeah. So I lived in the San Francisco Bay Area, and there was a collection of us who would like rent an Airbnb and just hang out for a good 3-4 day weekend and get some music done and do some collaborations. It's always been fun. I now live in Los Angeles, so I'd have to, I mean, not that there aren't any music people in Los Angeles, but those who want to do like the whole Airbnb thing, I'd have to kind of resurrect a community and do it down here. But yeah, it's been really fun, and I just love the concept of February Album Writing Month in general. Just get the songs out, get them going. Don't care about quality yet. It's more about quantity. The quality will come.
Yeah, and you find like that how do your muses react to FALM? Like what are some observations you've had from FALM?
That's a great question. How do y'all react? It's for those on the podcast, I'm looking up into the sky. They, I'm showing up for work, and sometimes they also show up for work. And sometimes they're like, no, you can just slog it out yourself, Suzanne. And I try, and then it doesn't work. They're a finicky bunch, but I do think they appreciate that I'm showing up, and they appreciate that I'm just like in work mode, like I'm in position, and it makes it easier for them to communicate things to me. It doesn't, they don't show up every single time. They're they just show up when they feel like it. I can't dictate what they do, but I can dictate what I do, is just be ready for them.
Yeah, it's that whole like Julia Cameron, like I take care of the quantity, you take care of the quality thing, which is what I think it's in the Main Artist Way book. I've read a lot of Julia Cameron, y'all. I speak Julia Cameron fluently, but but it's that imagery.
Yeah.
And yeah, I know from my experience, I've found that it helps. Time limits help me a lot when you're just like, one of my favorite things is I'll be like, okay, I'm writing a song, and it needs to be done by the time dinner Sam has finished making dinner. Okay, go. And then I can usually get like a draft from there, or like something like that. But yeah, you just kind of find, like, it's the time to sort of find your different ideas from different places and that you've been holding in your pocket and just test things out. And
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. It's really a cool thing. And I introduce, like, when I teach songwriting classes, I sometimes put like 6-week courses up in case people are interested in learning the art and craft of songwriting. The very first, spoiler alert if you ever want to take my classes, the very first lesson is talking about what's good music versus what's bad music, and talking about like what judgments you have on your own. So we talk a little bit about taste. We talk a little bit about what's objectively bad. And then after we start like talking about it, like there is no right or wrong answer to what is objectively bad. Just, even out of tune, like that's not objectively bad. You can't. Harry Parch made an art form out of it. So, and also in tune. Are you using Western scales? Are you not? Like, but after the discussion, I go, okay, everybody, our first exercise, we're going to have 15 minutes. I want you to write the worst song you've ever written. Go. Before we even talk about form, before we even talk about anything, before, like, some people have attended my classes, they don't know what a verse or a chorus is. That's great news. You don't have to know any of that to write a terrible, terrible song. So I give them 15 minutes. They go write a terrible, terrible song. They come back to me. And you know what's really interesting is actually it's really hard to write a truly god-awful song. It takes talent. It takes like real concentration and talent to write a terrible song. You can write mediocre songs. You can write songs you don't like. But to be like truly like Baby Shark level.
But, well, and then that's subjective because, like, lots of people like Baby Shark.
Yes, lots of little people also like Baby Shark. And so, like, how is it bad if it makes a little kid smile? Come on. Well, I can tell. Yeah, anyway. Answers to that. But, like, it is so surprising. And one of my students, afterwards, she was like, you know, I've been songwriting for 10 years, and this is the first time in a very long time that I had fun writing music. In that 15 minutes of trying to write like a terrible song. And that just really spoke to me. That really touched me because it's like music is that expression. It's that connection. It's that thing. And we get so far into our heads about things being good or me being good and me projecting that I am a good person with taste and artistic talent and all this stuff. And something like FOM comes along and it's like, nah, just do it. Nah, don't worry about all that. Just dive in and have fun again. It's so important. So important.
Yeah. And it's this beautiful thing of like, yeah, letting yourself play and letting yourself like connect with flow and like just not like detach. And yeah, it has this very clear like spiritual element to it, but it's also like not self-important about it. It's like, writing songs based on inside jokes you have with your partner can be a spiritual practice.
Yes, absolutely. And I just think, especially our culture, how we treat music in the Western world, it's like, oh, you're the musician over there and you perform the thing and we throw money at you because that's kind of our culture, you know, throw money. It's like a commodified thing. Here you are on the shelf. I am going to pick you off the shelf. I'm going to pick that off the shelf and then pick that off the shelf. There are other cultures, particularly like in the African continent, where like there's no such word as musician because that means that's somebody else. No. Music is a language and we're all speaking it. And then when we get together at a certain time and we come together with our specific things, there's no separation. And there's no separation between music and dance either. in some of these cultures. It is all one expression. So there's like so many different ways to look at music, and especially over here, and it is fair for us to want to claim our copyright because there's that thing, but it's also a very foreign concept for other cultures of this thing like you own music. Even if you wrote it, you don't own it. It's everybody's. It's like, do I own this sentence that I'm speaking right now? If I wanted to put a TM on it and make run it through the copyright office, I could, because I created this sentence that I'm speaking right now. But it's a very foreign concept for other cultures who are looking at like music it's just a way of expressing and connecting, and that's it. There's no other, like there's no silo of music. It's just embedded in how they speak with each other, how they relate with each other. Brain explode.
Yeah. I love how we have this through line happening where we just talked about music as a language and religion and spirituality as a language.
Yeah.
And I don't have anything eloquent to say other than like hold up those two things and be like, hey guys.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that is, I mean, music and religion have been so entwined, right? Like, it's not just like the formal hymns, although that sometimes is one of the reasons why people go to church at all, is to like listen to the music.
Yeah.
But it is this communication that transcends all of the facts and figures. And to tie it back even further of this, this journalism part of me that really did, and I still do care a lot about facts and figures and getting good quality information out there. And it's not the entirety of information that's out there. Like mythology, there's like, you want to fact check a myth? That's cool. You can prove it wrong. Fine. That's not why myths exist. Myths exist so that we can connect to a story that we can wrap our brains around that tells us about our collective morals, what we hold important as a people, as a culture. So same thing with music. I think there's another reason why, like, especially I think it was more so when I was a teen coming up. There's definitely like the country fans over here, the rap fans over here, the punk fans over here. Like, there is not a whole lot of crossover. Nowadays, it's all crossing over and nobody cares anymore. But it comes back to that tribalism that I think we're keep trying to climb out of. But it is that language. It's like, the old way of thinking, my church is better than your church, my religion is better than your religion, is kind of not really keeping its walls together anymore. In a lot of the same way, like music, we are speaking different languages, and we're understanding that I can listen to country and not confuse that with me being like a hick. I hate that word, but like, you know what I mean? Like, even if I just listen to one Shania Twain song and be like, ew, gross. And now I'm like, what was I thinking? Why was I so gross? Like, yeah, like, sure, there's a language to it, and like country fans tend to skew more Republican and blah, 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 blah. But why is somebody else's story so allergic to me? Because this is language, this is culture, this is, religion and music are languages and cultures. So I don't have to identify with I don't have to be from all of these different cultures in order for these languages to speak to me. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, it's a way of connecting with their language or with other languages, and also it's a form of empathy, and it's a form of getting into other people's shoes and like trying to understand their language. And
especially like because I grew up Mormon, and there was definitely not laws. There were definitely rules about what I could and couldn't listen to as a Mormon. And I kind of grew up in this cultural ideal of like, if you listen to NWA, fuck the police, that's the worst song in the history of the world. It's from the devil. You can't listen to it or else you'll be like whatever. I didn't listen to Fuck the Police until I was 30. Because there's this stupid, it's stupid. But when I listen to it, I'm like, oh, they want to say fuck the police because the police are fucking racist. And they literally say it in the lyrics. Oh, that's why they didn't want me to hear it. And I didn't, even though like this, white middle class woman listening to NWA is like definitely a clash of these these ideas of cultures. But again, it's me listening, finally opening my ears up and listening straight from the people who are in a culture that I'm not a part of, and listening to their story really, truly, as it is. And it kind of broke me a little open, going like, what else did they tell me to not listen to? What else did they tell me to not empathize with? What else did they tell me to like? And I'm not, I'm not encouraging people to go like, cop killer on people, but I need to hear the story of a community that is so fed up and so frustrated that the power that they have to speak back against all this bullshit is music. And it's powerful. It's really, really powerful.
Yeah. This is the part where, as a host, I'm like, okay, when do I just leave? When do I just shut up and leave pauses? And there will just be a pause there.
Yeah, let's just marinate in that a little bit.
Yeah, just. So I wanted to segue into you had a song that you wanted to perform today. So tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, so this song I wrote, at first it had some slightly different lyrics. It was a little more up-tempo. But I think the root of this song, it needed to be slowed down. Speaking of marinating, it needed to have some space. I originally wrote this song for a music supervisor, friend of a friend, who had a call out for a song about positivity or self-acceptance. And I wrote it. I kind of, it's called Redefining Perfect. And I wrote the song and I held on to it and I didn't do anything with it because it wasn't perfect or something. I don't know. I was literally going against the whole meaning of the song and was being a perfectionist about things. But every time, I never turned it in to the music supervisor, but every time I would play it at shows, people would come out afterwards and go, that song really moved me to tears, or had an emotional reaction to this song. And so I will play it for you right now. Oh, perfection hearts break, you tell them you made no mistake. And though you have broken your vow 1,000 times, come, keep going, keep flowing, keep flowing. The river's beautiful and perfect. You don't even have to try. You're beautiful and perfect. And need no reason. You are flowing like the water. You rise and the stars, the sky. You're redefining. Perfect. Love is so easy to make and to fake. And all that I keys consider releasing the wild stream. The river is beautiful and perfect. You don't even have to try. You're beautiful and perfect. You need no reason. You are flowing like the water. And redefining perfect. There is heart within a heartbreak. There is meaning within a meaning. But don't you worry about that. Just keep on breathing. Keep being. Keep being. The river's beautiful and perfect. It don't even have to try. You're beautiful and perfect. And need no reason. You are redefined and perfect. 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 You are perfect.
Yay! Oh my goodness. That one's gorgeous. I don't know if I'd heard that one before.
Thank you. Thank
Yeah.
you.
I love a good you are beautiful and water imagery like combo. That's my
Yeah.
jam.
That that came from my friend Leslie, who she's since passed, but she wrote a poem that was just about like nature is beautiful and it doesn't have to even do anything, it just is. And who are we to say we're not nature?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I feel like we're kind of winding down our conversation. I'm gonna ask you the question that I ask everybody.
Okay.
Which is, where does inspiration live in your body?
I feel like my mind is an antenna that picks up a signal from inspiration out there. I could be wrong, but I just feel like I don't know if it's made a home in my body more than it's made a summer house. Does that make sense? It feels like it's a channel, like these cells in this brain and things are a channel to hold inspiration, but I never feel like it's at home. I just feel like it is a visiting welcome guest. But it would be like there's if I were to point to areas of my body where the channel is, I just feel like the radio antenna is straight from my brain, straight through the top of my skull and down through the heart. Basically the chakras, probably. That's like the channel. That's the radio antenna. But it hits from the top of my head and it goes straight down.
Nice. I love that question. And I love hearing how different people respond to it. So I always have to wrap up to it. But chakra language usually comes up, and so that's just very an interesting, like, cool.
That is very interesting. Yeah.
Awesome. Before we wrap up, is there anything else that you feel that you want to say or dive down or anything?
I feel like I've talked for a full hour, and at the same time, I feel like I could talk for like 5 more, because there's so much to talk about, like the creative process and music and how spirituality kind of aligns with all of that. But I think we can leave the mystery be at a certain point.
Yeah, I mean, like we can always like do this again sometime as we grow.
Absolutely.
This has been wonderful. And yeah, I thank you everyone for going on this little journey here. Yeah. Well, where can people find you?
Littlespiral.com is the place to kind of start if you want my first EP for free, plus some extra bonus materials and things like that. You can go to freemusic.littlespiral.com, and then there'll be links to Spotify and a way to sign up for my email list and all that. So if you were to go at any one place, freemusic.littlespiral.com will take you to where you need to go.
Awesome. Yay. Well, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you for having me and for hosting this amazing podcast and for starting these conversations that need to be had. I love it.
Thank you for listening to Faith and What Resonates. The theme song is My Journey, My Song, the first song I wrote back when I was 19. It was a whole dang muse moment, and I will occasionally tell the full story of it on assorted podcast episodes, so look out for that. Anyway, thanks, Past Gail. You can find out more about Suzanne's work and how to connect with her in the show notes. Faith and What Resonates is part of the New Faith New Media Network. You can discuss this and future episodes in the New Faith New Media Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/NFNM group. You can also follow us on social media, and those links are in the show notes. If you want to support New Faith New Media, you can support our crowdfunding campaign at bit.ly/NFNMindie, or support us by becoming a Patreon. All Patreon supporters get access to our Patreon-exclusive podcast, Blessed Lunatics, where myself and the other founding members of NFNM explore the divine through laughter, which is code for we drink and we make jokes about our faith backgrounds, and it's a good time. Finally, if you want to find out more about the other things I do in the world, head to gailgallaghermusic.com. Thanks for listening, and remember to stay curious and follow the magic of the things that resonate.
New Faith, New Media.
Theology.
Nerdery.
Community.